In 1970, before our entire family was exiled to the countryside, my parents couldn't bear to see my sister suffer on the farm, so they hastily married her off to a young military officer. In our previous life, after my sister married the young officer, his entire family was also sent down to the farm. In the end, my sister died in that remote farm due to complications during childbirth. When I opened my eyes again, my sister and I had returned to the month before the exile, in the living room. Mom and Dad were discussing, eager to marry off my sister before being sent down to the countryside. "Arya, it's not that we don't care about you, but your sister is in poor health. How could she handle such heavy labor on the farm?" "Yes, Arya, you're stronger than your sister. Your mother and I have decided. We'll have your sister married off as soon as possible, and you'll accompany us to the countryside." Before I could speak, my sister suddenly pushed me aside. "Dad, Mom, I want to go to the farm with you. Let my younger sister marry into the Han family in my place." My parents were shocked. Without regard for my presence, they each took one of my sister's delicate hands and desperately tried to persuade her. "Fern, Mom knows you can't bear to part with your dad and me, but that farm is no place for people to live. Listen, just let your sister go with us. You hurry up and marry into the Han family. Your mother is right, the Han family has a military background. Those troublemakers wouldn't dare cause trouble for the military. Reese Han is already a battalion commander. With him protecting you, you won't suffer when you follow him as a military wife." My sister glanced at me and pulled our parents aside. I don't know what the three of them discussed, but when they came back, my parents changed their tune. "Arya, your sister feels sorry for you and is afraid you'll suffer if you follow us to the farm. So she's decided to let you take her place and marry into the Han family to live a life of comfort. When your days in the Han family become prosperous, don't ever forget your sister's kindness to you. Yes, your sister gave up her fiancé just so you wouldn't have to endure hardship on the farm. Arya, your father and I have discussed it. Once you marry into the Han family and follow Reese Han to the military base, you'll have everything you need. As for the things at home, we won't give them to you. Consider it compensation for your sister." Listening to my parents' blatant favoritism, I laughed. If marrying into the Han family is such a blessing, then let my sister go instead. Anyway, I'm used to hardship since childhood. I should accompany Mom and Dad to the farm. "No." My sister suddenly lost control of her emotions and screamed. I looked at my sister in surprise. "Why?" Because, my sister stammered, unable to utter a single word. I knew that my sister must have also returned. In our previous life, our parents couldn't bear to see my sister suffer with them when they were sent to the farm, so they made all the arrangements for her early on. First, they published a notice in the newspaper declaring they were severing ties with my sister to draw a clear line. This way, my sister wouldn't be implicated by the family. Then, they left the family house, savings, and all valuable possessions to my sister. Finally, they even arranged for my sister to marry into the Han family. The Han family had 2 generations of military service. Han's father was already a division commander at the time, and Reese Han, despite his youth, had already risen to the rank of battalion commander. My parents had thought that with the Han family's protection and so much money, my sister would surely live a life free from want. Yet, to their surprise, in our previous life, no sooner had our family been sent down to the farm than soon after, Father Han was also framed by his subordinates, and the entire Han family was sent to the harshest and most remote farm. Not a single penny or item left to my sister by our parents was preserved. Later, my sister became pregnant on the farm, due to her poor health, cold, and hunger. She ultimately died in childbirth, unable to be saved, and passed away on the farm. After my sister's death, my parents blamed everything on me. They called me a jinx, saying that if I hadn't taken my sister's nutrients in the womb, her body wouldn't have been so weak, and she wouldn't have died from a difficult childbirth. They accused me of seeking pleasure, enjoying life with them during the exile, while watching my sister be sent to the most remote and harsh farm. But did I really live in comfort? During those years of exile with my parents, I struggled just to keep them alive. I went from being the child of government compound officials to becoming a fierce and fearless daredevil woman. When my parents were bullied by villagers, I grabbed a hoe and fought them tooth and nail, ending up covered in bruises. The worst time, 3 of my ribs were broken, but I didn't let them off easy. I bit off half of one man's ear. After that, Those people never dared to bully our family again. Father couldn't bear to lose face and refused to carry manure or chop firewood. Mother had been waited on by maids for decades and couldn't even perform the most basic tasks like washing clothes or cooking. It was also me who worked desperately in the fields all day to earn work points and support our family of 3. At night, I returned to the cowshed to wash clothes, cook meals, fetch water, and chop firewood, washing clothes in the icy river during winter, enduring excruciating menstrual cramps while still forcing myself to work in the fields, doing laundry and cooking. Because if I didn't do it, no one would. If no one worked, all 3 of us in the family would go hungry. After enduring this hardship for 5 long years, my health was completely ruined. But in my parents' eyes, just because I didn't die on the farm like my sister did, I became an unforgivable sinner. My mother wished I would die to atone for my sister, to climb the social ladder. My father married me off to an old boss 20 years my senior who had already buried 3 wives, in my past life. My body was ruined from toiling on the farm, leaving me unable to bear children, and I was abused and beaten by that man. In the end, pushed beyond my limits, I bought a pack of rat poison and ended it all with him, in this life. Since my sister believes that being sent down to the farm with our parents is a blessing, then, as you wish, I promised my parents that I could marry into the Han family in place of my sister. However, the family's money and belongings shouldn't all be taken by my sister to the farm. I want half of it. As soon as I finished speaking, my parents' expressions changed. Mom looked at me with a gloomy and displeased expression. It's true what they say, daughters are always partial to their husbands' families. You're not even married yet, and already you're thinking about taking things to your in-laws' house. Your dad and I were counting on you marrying into the Han family so you could help your sister and our family more in the future, but now it seems we can't rely on you at all. Dad glared at me angrily and said, "Don't be so greedy. Your sister has already given up her fiancé just so you could stay in the city and live comfortably, and now you still want to take things from her." Hearing our parents scold me mercilessly, my sister curled her lips slightly but obediently said, "Dad, Mom, since little sister wants it, just let her have it. As long as I can be with Mom and Dad, I don't need anything else." Moved, my parents hugged my sister tightly, but when they turned to look at me, their eyes were filled with disgust. Their tone was unusually cold. "Your sister has already given up her fiancé for you, and you're the one staying in the city to enjoy a comfortable life. What more could you possibly want? It's settled then. I'll have your mother give you 500 yuan. That will be your dowry. The remaining money and belongings at home can be considered as compensation for your sister. $500. I lowered my head, unable to suppress a cold laugh in my heart. Dad has held a high-ranking position all these years. And Mom was once the daughter of a capitalist family. When she married Dad, I heard her dowry alone was worth over 100,000 in gold, silver, jewelry, antiques, and paintings. Now, they're going to leave all those things to my sister, and for me, just a mere $500. I've known since childhood that our parents favor my sister more, but to actually hear such undisguised favoritism and disdain with my own ears, it felt like my heart was being torn apart by a pair of rough hands. The pain so intense I could barely breathe. Tears streamed down uncontrollably, and I told myself, "Mom and Dad, this is the last time in my life I'll shed tears for you." I didn't argue. Because I knew it would be useless. No matter how hard I fought, I could never win the favoritism our parents showed my sister. Moreover, I was genuinely curious to see how my sister would manage to protect these things from those people in this lifetime. Perhaps it was my obedience and docility, never fighting or competing, that made my mother feel a hint of guilt toward me. The next day, after my father left, my mother called me into her room. She secretly slipped me 2 thick envelopes. "Aria. Inside these are 2,000 yuan, along with some food coupons, fabric coupons, and sugar coupons. Don't blame me and your dad. The reason you can stay in the city and enjoy a good life is all because your sister sacrificed herself to make it possible for you. Your father and I left everything at home to your sister, also to atone for your sins." Atonement. Wasn't it because you, Mom, were afraid of gaining weight during pregnancy and deliberately starved yourself, causing my sister to be malnourished even in the womb? Didn't my sister voluntarily give me the Han family's marriage arrangement precisely because, in our past life, the Han family was soon to be sent down, and to an even harsher borderland farm? She wanted me to marry into the Han family in her place. Clearly, she was trying to push me into a pit of fire. So who exactly is the one who should be atoning? However, I remained silent, just obediently taking the 2 envelopes handed to me by my mother, who says there's no way out in the most remote farms of our motherland. In this life, I will live for myself. I will no longer bear the fate of others, nor will I struggle desperately to protect Mom and Dad. In this life, I will forge a path to survival for myself. Mom, Dad, and my sister all became busy. I knew that my sister must have told our parents about the events of our past life, so Dad was pulling strings everywhere. Trying to avoid this round of being sent down, Mom and sister are also busy hiding things everywhere. Holding the letter of introduction, I came to the Han family alone. Today was the day both families had agreed to go get the marriage certificate. The ridiculous thing is, my parents are doing everything they can, running around frantically, trying to change my sister's fate, about to get married. Here I was, all alone, carrying a shabby little bundle. I walked on foot to the Han family's house. Seeing me appear in such a disheveled state in the military compound, without even wearing a decent outfit for the marriage registration, Mrs. Han froze for a moment, a flicker of heartache crossing her eyes, then quickly stood up and warmly took my hand. You must be Arya, right? I've heard so much about you from your parents, how independent, strong, sensible, and capable you've been since childhood. I never expected your parents to be so carefree, letting you handle something as significant as marriage registration all by yourself. I don't know how my sister explained things to the Han family in our past life, but in this life, I have no intention of covering up for our parents. I sat down, took a couple sips of water, and calmly explained my parents' and sister's plans in detail to the Han family. My father is worried he won't escape this round of being sent down. So he wants me to marry into your family immediately, as a backup plan for his eventual comeback. Originally, it should have been my sister marrying over, but my father is concerned that Uncle Han might also be sent down. Given Uncle Han's position, if he were to be sent down, he'd be assigned to the harshest locations. My parents couldn't bear to let my sister suffer hardships with you, so they decided that I should marry Brother Han in her place. Auntie, that's the situation. If Brother Han doesn't want to marry me, we can call off the engagement right now. Mother Han was shocked. Call it off? But what will you do then? I smiled and said, I've already cut ties with my family, so I can sign up to go to the countryside as an educated youth. No need, I'll marry you. Reese Han suddenly spoke up. I looked up in surprise and unexpectedly met Reese Han's gaze. In those gentle yet determined eyes, there was heartache and tenderness. The only thing missing was the disdain and disgust I knew all too well. My nose stung, and tears streamed down uncontrollably. Even strangers meeting me for the first time would feel heartache for me. Yet my own parents treated me like worthless trash. Can't wait, they handed me over to a stranger. Seeing me cry so bitterly, Mrs. Han, disregarding the awkwardness of our first meeting, quickly sat beside me and held me in her arms, her face full of heartache. Arya, don't cry. Don't cry, Tilda. If they don't cherish you, we will. You'll go register your marriage with Reese right now. Once you're married, we'll be your mom and dad. As he spoke, he raised his hand and slapped Reese Han. What are you standing there for? Go get the household register and the letter of introduction now. Under Mrs. Han's urging, it took only half an hour for Reese Han and me to complete the marriage procedures. On the marriage certificate, which looked like an award certificate, the 2 names Reese Han and Arya Yao were closely nestled together. I know, in this life, I have family too. In the end, my father still couldn't escape the fate of being sent to the farm. What's even more ridiculous is that my mother and sister hiding money and belongings everywhere was reported by a relative who had long been envious of our family. In this life, the things my parents left for my sister still couldn't be kept. Not a single penny. Not only that, but because of this incident, my father was implicated and was to be sent down to a farm even harsher than in the previous life. The day before he was to be sent down, my sister came to find me, seeing me walk out of the military compound in a newly bought dress. My sister glared at me with venom in her eyes. Arya Yao, don't get too smug too soon. The Han family will soon be sent down as well, and to the poorest, most remote, and harshest farm at that. You will surely die there, and don't even think about coming back in this lifetime. I looked at her with pity in my eyes. Whether I can return or not, I dare not say for certain. But I can be certain that with my sister's frail little body, if she were sent down to the farm with our parents, she definitely wouldn't survive until the day they returned to the city. But why should I remind her? After all, my own sister didn't want me to come back alive either. Sister, between you and me, let's see who will have the last laugh. After my parents and sister left, I stayed with the Han family, and we talked behind closed doors all night. The next day, my father-in-law and Reese Han immediately returned to the military to handle the aftermath. I asked my mother-in-law to gather all the old clothes in the house. Then, we wrapped the household money, food coupons, and some other vouchers that could be given away in oil paper, and sewed them into the old clothes. The gold and silver jewelry at home was also melted down and fashioned into small pieces of gold and silver leaf. My mother-in-law and I gathered all the old shoes from the entire family. We pried open the soles, sewed the gold and silver leaf inside, and then padded them with an extra layer of insoles, completely undetectable from the outside. Half a month later, the time came when the Han family was exiled in the previous life. In this life, with my reminder, my father-in-law and Reese Han made preparations in advance. Although they still couldn't escape the tide of the times, the entire family was to be sent down. However, thanks to my father-in-law's maneuvering, our relocation site was changed from the remote forestry farm of the previous life to a small fishing village just over 100 miles from the provincial capital. Only then did I learn that my father-in-law and mother-in-law's hometowns were both by the sea, and their ancestors had made a living by fishing for generations. After arriving at the fishing village, my father-in-law and Reese Han went out to sea with the villagers to fish. I went to the tidal flats with my mother-in-law and the village aunties to gather seafood. In this life, I no longer have to endure what I did in my past life, being drained pale by leeches while transplanting rice seedlings in the fields, nor do I have to work all day in the fields, only to come home in the evening and still wash clothes, cook meals, fetch water, and chop firewood for my parents. Unlike my father, who was sent to the farm but still put on airs as a high-ranking official, my father-in-law quickly bonded with the village cadres in the small fishing village. He even taught the village children military-style boxing. Thanks to his good rapport, our family soon moved out of the foul-smelling cowshed. My mother-in-law spent 50 yuan to buy 2 vacant houses in the village that no one lived in, one for my in-laws and one for Reese Han and me. After being with Reese Han, I finally realized how my sister in my past life truly didn't appreciate the blessings she had, apart from being a man of few words. Reese Han is practically flawless in every way. He's considerate to his wife, always rushing to help me with chores, never letting me lift a finger for heavy tasks like fetching water or chopping firewood. He doesn't talk much, but in reality, he's a very attentive person. He noticed that my hands had cracked from being soaked in seawater. The next day, he ran to the supply and marketing cooperative to buy snow cream and clam oil for both me and my mother-in-law. In the 3rd month of being sent down, I became pregnant with Reese Han's child. My mother-in-law asked if I wanted to write a letter to my parents to share the good news, but I shook my head. To my surprise, even though I didn't write to them, I actually received a letter from my parents a few days later. In my previous life, up until the day I died, my parents never stopped praising my sister. But in this lifetime, even though my sister has been by their side, every word in my parents' letter to me was filled with complaints about her. So it turns out, in this life without their hard-working and uncomplaining youngest daughter, after being sent down to the farm, my parents and sister have truly suffered greatly. Dad, just like in his previous life, maintained the air of a high-ranking official, unwilling to shovel manure or carry dung from the pigsty. He thought my sister would take the initiative to do the work for him, just like I used to, but as soon as my sister got close to the pigsty, she vomited until tears streamed down her face and fainted on the spot. My mom in this lifetime has never even held a spatula, let alone have the strength to wield a shovel for pig manure. As a result, none of the 3 family members were willing to accept the farm's reformation, and the poor souls went hungry for 3 whole days. The first 3 days were manageable. Before leaving, my mom had brought some biscuits and walnut cakes. So the 3 of them managed to eat a little and barely filled their stomachs. But soon, the biscuits and walnut cakes were all gone. The farm made it clear, no work, no food. My parents and sister, who hadn't eaten for 3 days, had no choice but to join the farm work. But my mother had never farmed in her life and couldn't even tell seedlings from weeds. After a day's work, she mistook seedlings for weeds and pulled out a large patch. Not only did she fail to earn work points, but the farm also deducted 100 points from her. My sister, already in poor health, collapsed from exhaustion after just half a day of cutting pigweed in the mountains. My mother had to wait on her, bringing tea and water. My father had no choice but to set aside his dignity and pride. He worked the fields during the day to earn work points and came home at night to fetch water, chop firewood, wash clothes, and cook. In my previous life, I endured such days for a full 5 years. But in this life, my father and mother couldn't even last 5 months before crying and wailing in their letters, saying they regretted it. My father said my sister was nothing but a useless burden. They had taken her to the farm hoping she would be filial, doing their laundry, cooking, and serving them tea and water. Instead, my sister was sickly the whole journey and fell seriously ill as soon as they arrived at the farm. Not only can I not take care of my parents now, but they also have to provide my sister with good food and drink. In the letter, my dad said that he and my mom are getting older and simply can't take care of my sister anymore. They decided to get a hospital certificate for my sister and send her back to the city for medical treatment. But our original home, the house, had already been reclaimed by my dad's work unit. My sister needs to return to the city for medical treatment, so she can only stay at my place for now. My mother also mentioned in her letter that the marriage into the Han family was originally something my sister gave up for me. Now my sister is critically ill on the farm, all because she suffered in my place. If I have even a shred of conscience left, I should immediately bring my sister back to the Han family, take good care of her with proper food and comfort, so she can recuperate well in the Han household. In the letter, my mother also subtly inquired whether Reese Han and I had consummated our marriage yet. If not, she hoped I could return the Han family's marriage arrangement to my sister. This way, my sister could stay in the city, in the military compound, to properly recuperate. As for me, it would be best to divorce Reese Han immediately, then go to the farm to reunite with my parents, making it easier to care for them in the future. After reading the letter, I laughed in anger and, without a second thought, tossed both the letter and the envelope with the return address straight into the stove. The roaring flames instantly reduced those thin sheets of paper to ashes. Reeson looked at me with concern and cautiously asked, "Are you really not going to reply to your parents-in-law?" I shook my head. My parents already publicly disowned me in the newspaper long ago. Besides, our family has been sent down now. If our two families continue to correspond at this time and it gets discovered by the authorities, it could harm my parents, as well as my in-laws. My words made my in-laws, who initially disapproved of me burning the letters, nod in approval. Reese Han, afraid I might be upset, even took half a day off in the afternoon to dig up a large basin of oysters by the sea and gather a basket of seaweed. My mother-in-law took out a sugar ration ticket and went to the production team leader's house to exchange it for 3 catties of mixed grain flour. In the evening, my father-in-law and mother-in-law personally cooked, with Reese Han assisting, while I was responsible for tending the fire. The whole family worked together to make a big batch of dumplings stuffed with oysters and seaweed. Eating the steaming seaweed dumplings, the rising mist reddened the rims of my eyes. The dumplings were so fragrant, so delicious. It suddenly occurred to me that today was actually my father's birthday. In my previous life, it was also on this day. To celebrate my father's birthday, I secretly saved money for a month in advance. Every day after work, while others went home to rest, I ran to the mountains to pick self-heal, getting bitten by mosquitoes until there wasn't a single patch of unmarked skin left on my body. Dried self-heal could be sold for 2 cents per pound at the Supply and Marketing Cooperative's purchasing station. I saved for a long time before finally accumulating 20 cents, enough to buy a pound of white flour to make a bowl of longevity noodles for my father. But when Dad saw this bowl of longevity noodles, he flew into a rage, calling me heartless and unworthy of being his daughter. Mom, wiping her tears beside him, also questioned me. "Do you think that now that your sister is gone, you're our only child, and we'll have to rely on you for everything? Let me tell you, Arya Yao, even if you served 1,000 bowls of longevity noodles, no, even if you cut the flesh from your own body to make soup for your father, it wouldn't begin to atone for the sin of causing your sister's death." I shook my head desperately. wishing I could kneel and swear that I never wanted to replace my sister or felt any joy over her death, but my parents just wouldn't believe me. My father kicked me hard, sending me crashing into the corner. The intense pain made me curl up into a ball. My mother rushed over, grabbed my hair, and slapped me several times with all her might, as if using every ounce of strength in her body to save money for my father's longevity noodles. I had been sleeping only 4 hours a day for a whole month, exhausted and starving. Those slaps from my mother made stars burst before my eyes, and I passed out on the spot, in the middle of the night. When I finally got up from the floor, the big bowl of longevity noodles on the table had already been finished by Mom and Dad. Not even a sip of the broth was left for me. All that remained for me was a table full of unwashed dishes. In this lifetime, Dad, Mom, your most beloved eldest daughter is right by your side. I suppose, this year's birthday, Dad must have had a very happy time. Right, time has flown by in the blink of an eye, and more than half a year has passed during these 6 months. Perhaps because I never wrote back, I no longer received any letters from Mom, Dad, or my sister. That's fine too. After all, in their previous life, my parents regretted until their dying day that they hadn't protected my sister and hadn't taken her with them when they were sent to the countryside. In this life, I've granted their wish for a family of 3, allowing my parents to take my sister with them to the farm. As for me, their unfavored daughter, I've completely distanced myself from them. My belly was getting bigger and bigger, and the due date was approaching. My mother-in-law tore open an old cotton-padded jacket and took out 50 yuan from inside. She gave Rishan 20 yuan to buy 10 jin of flour, 10 jin of dried noodles, and a few jin of brown sugar for postpartum recovery at the commune. She also took out another 10 yuan to buy 2 egg-laying hens and 100 eggs from the villagers, saving them for my postpartum recovery. Finally, they took out $5 and asked my father-in-law to treat the village cadres to a meal at the state-run restaurant. The village chief promised that on the day I gave birth, he would lend us the village's tractor. I never expected that my father-in-law and mother-in-law would actually decide to spend money to send me to the county hospital to give birth. A few days later, I successfully gave birth to a pair of twins, a boy and a girl, at the county hospital. The in-laws were overjoyed, each holding one of the babies and refusing to let go. Reeson grinned like a fool, but seeing how pale I was, he quickly brewed a large bowl of overly sweet brown sugar water and fed it to me sip by sip. Perhaps these 2 children truly are the little lucky stars of the Han family, or perhaps it was my rebirth that changed the fate of the Han family. The twins had just turned 1 when the investigation results regarding my father-in-law and Rishan were finally released. Our family could finally return to the city. Both my father-in-law and Rishan were reinstated to their original positions. The family quarters that had been reclaimed by the work unit were also returned to us. While my mother-in-law and I were busy tidying up the house, an unexpected visitor suddenly arrived at the residential compound. The guard on duty at the gate looked troubled as he said to me, "Sister-in-law, that woman at the gate insists she's your mother, but she can't produce any identification. She seems a bit unhinged. Should we call the police?" I followed the guard to the compound entrance and saw my mother, who in my past life had always been impeccably dressed and poised, now disheveled, sallow-faced, and looking as shabby as a beggar. The moment my mother saw me, she became visibly agitated. "Arya, Mom has finally found you. Quick, come with me to save your sister." I was slightly surprised. What happened to my sister? Didn't she go with you and Dad? In my mother's incoherent explanation, I learned the whole story. It turned out that my sister, after her rebirth, thought she could use this golden finger to help our parents avoid being sent down and continue living as the privileged daughter of a leader. But unexpectedly, my father, long accustomed to his high status, simply didn't know how to ask for favors in this life. The farm where the 3 of them were sent for re-education turned out to be even harsher than in their previous lifetime. My sister, being lazy and averse to hardship, started feigning illness even before reaching the farm. Once there, she took to her bed completely, lying around all day, waiting for our parents to wait on her. At first, my parents felt sorry for her and even went around asking for help, trying to get some good food for my sister, until one day, while shoveling manure in the pig pen, my father took a bad fall. When he was brought home, he happened to see my sister, who was supposed to be sick and lying in bed. casually sitting by the door, cracking melon seeds and watching the commotion with leisure. The long-term physical labor and mental torment had already pushed my father to the brink of collapse. My sister's deception became the final straw that broke him. That night, my father and my sister completely tore off all pretenses. My father grabbed my sister by the hair, swung his arm, and slapped her hard more than a dozen times. My sister struggled desperately, cursing foully, calling my father useless. How even with the golden finger of rebirth, he still ended up exiled to the farm just like in their past life, dragging her down to suffer with him. She even said she regretted it. Had she known my father would be so useless, she shouldn't have followed them into exile and should have married into the Han family instead. These words truly struck a nerve with my father. After that day, my father seemed like a completely different person, beating or scolding my sister every day, forcing her to work in the fields and shovel manure in the pig pen. The look in my sister's eyes when she gazed at my father gradually filled with resentment, until that day arrived, my father's birthday. In my previous life, on this very day, I secretly saved up for a month just to make my dad a bowl of longevity noodles, with 2 poached eggs in it. In this life, my dad chose to take my sister with him when he was sent down to the countryside, so he missed out on this treat, not to mention that my sister had no money to begin with, but even if she did, given her selfish nature, she would only spend it on herself. So, on his birthday, all my dad got was a bowl of sweet water boiled with kogan grass roots. My mother only realized it afterward. My sister used kogan grass roots to boil water, first because they were free, and second because the water boiled from kogan grass roots was murky, making it easier for her to mix in the poison. My father died. He died on his 50th birthday. My sister personally administered the rat poison. At the entrance of the family compound, my mother was still rambling on, pleading for my sister's sake. Your father was also at fault in this matter. Who told him to beat your sister so often? Your sister had no choice but to act rashly and drug your father. Now that your father is gone, we can't let anything happen to your sister too. Arya, I'm begging you as your mother. I heard the Han family has been rehabilitated now. Your father-in-law holds a high position and has great influence. If he just makes a phone call and claims it was accidental killing, the authorities won't investigate, and our own family won't pursue it. Your sister will definitely be able to come back. I looked at my mother and asked word by word. And after she comes back, are you also going to say that this marriage with the Han family was originally my sister's gift to me, now that she's back? Should I just return this marriage to her? Hearing my words, a trace of embarrassment flashed across my mother's face as she hurriedly explained, that was all nonsense I said in the past. I heard you gave birth to a pair of twins for Han, and your relationship is so good now, how could I possibly break you two apart? But, Arya, as you said, this marriage was originally meant for your sister. If she hadn't given Han to you, you'd still be with us, suffering on the farm. How could you have such a good life now? Go and beg Han, beg your father-in-law, to save your sister as soon as possible. You owe her this much. Hearing this, Han could no longer hold back. He walked over, took my hand, and looked at my mother with a serious expression, saying, Mother-in-law, what do you mean by, this marriage was originally between me and Fern Yao. Back then, I asked my parents to send someone to your family to propose marriage. The one I originally intended to propose to was Arya. What? I looked up in surprise, staring dumbfounded at Han. Hearing Han's words, I keenly noticed a flicker of guilt flash across my mother's face. What's going on? My parents told me that when your family sent someone to propose, they said any daughter from our Yarrow family would do. It didn't matter which one. My parents believed that seniority should be respected, so they thought my older sister should marry before me. That's why they arranged this marriage for her. I recounted on the spot the whole story of how the Yarrow and Han families had arranged the marriage alliance back then. My mom panicked immediately and was just about to open her mouth to explain when Han said, Impossible. Arya, do you remember, 5 years ago, when your school visited the military camp for the bitter meal experience, your whole class couldn't stomach the food. Then you came up with an idea. You led everyone to gather reeds, wrapped the coarse rice in reed leaves, and steamed it until it resembled zongza. Everyone ended up fighting to eat it. That time, I took a liking to you at first sight. I thought, such a hard-working and clever girl, if only she could be my wife. But later, When I sent a matchmaker to your home, they returned saying your parents had already arranged your marriage. They mentioned your older sister was still unattached and asked if I'd consider switching to her instead. With a loud bang, it felt like a thunderclap exploded in my mind. So that's how it is. No wonder. In my past life, after my sister married Reese Han, I heard their relationship was never very good. No wonder. As soon as my sister married into the Han family, my parents couldn't wait to take me to the countryside. It turned out they were afraid that once I met Reese Han, their lies would be completely exposed. Seeing that her and my father's scheme had been uncovered, my mother was too ashamed to beg for mercy and left in disgrace. A few days later, my sister's verdict was also announced. Without a doubt, poisoning with intent to kill, death penalty. Before the execution, my sister asked the prison guard to call our family's residence, requesting to see me one last time. I also wanted to know what she could possibly have left to say to me at this point. The moment my sister saw me, her eyes turned red with agitation, glaring at me with intense hatred. Arya Yao, how did it come to this? Weren't you supposed to be living the good life with mom and dad at the farm in your past life? Why did everything change after I went to the farm with my parents? And the Han family, weren't they supposed to be sent to the most remote border farm? Why did they stay in the small fishing village? Tell me, is all of this your doing? I looked at her with pity. Sister, have you ever considered that, in fact, nothing has changed, in our past life? Just like you, my parents and I suffered greatly on the farm. However, in my previous life, it was I who worked like a slave for our parents, so during those years of hardship, they never suffered even a little. And you, my dear sister, what have you done for them all these years? Dare you tell the truth? A flicker of guilt flashed in my sister's eyes, followed by a burst of anger as she retorted, so what if I didn't help them with their work? Don't you forget, if I hadn't given up the Han family's advantageous marriage proposal for you, it would have been you suffering with our parents on the farm in this lifetime. I looked at my sister with a mocking, half smile. Sister, after repeating a lie 1,000 times, have you actually started believing it yourself? Let me tell you the truth. Reese Han brought me here today. He's waiting outside right now. Would you dare say to his face that you gave this marriage to me? Hearing that Reese Han had also come, my sister's face instantly turned deathly pale. Her lips trembled as she shook her head in disbelief, unable to accept it. Impossible. How could he know? It's over. He knows I switched the marriage arrangement. He definitely won't save me now. As she spoke, my sister raised her head, her eyes filled with venom as she glared at me, shrieking sharply. Why, Arya Yao, you're just a little bitch our parents never liked. How could such a good match with the Han family fall into your lap? Don't get too cocky. Mom and dad love me the most. I just casually mentioned how envious I was that you could marry such a great man like Reese Han, and they gave me the Han family's marriage arrangement. I suggest you be smart and get me out of here right now. Otherwise, I'll tell Mom that you refused to save me when I was in trouble. See if she'll forgive you then. I shook my head, looked at my sister, and said word by word, have you forgotten? I've long since severed ties with our parents and you through a public notice, just a stranger now. Do you think I still care whether she forgives me or not? After saying this, I turned and walked away, leaving behind my sister's furious and desperate curses. I heard that after my sister was executed, my mother had no one to support her because my father had already passed away. She soon remarried a cart driver who worked on a farm, pulling ox carts. The cart driver had a terrible temper and would beat his wife when he got drunk. My mother regretted it and wanted to run back to find me, but the cart driver caught up with her halfway and beat her to death. After receiving the call from the farm, Reese Han and I went there to retrieve my mother's ashes. She was buried together with my father and my sister. In both their lifetimes, my parents always favored my sister. In death, they can rest together with her. I suppose they must have died without regrets. As for me, in this lifetime, I have found a family who truly cherishes and loves me. There is also a pair of clever and adorable children. In this life, I no longer desperately pursue the familial love that was never truly mine, because genuine love requires no desperate seeking.